Can you believe Pokemon X and Y are officially 10 years old now? I had just started middle school when these games came out, and now here I am almost done with college, and working on a YouTube channel because I majored in art. Haha! College isn't for everyone, kids. Anyways, with one of my favorite Pokemon games reaching double digits, I think we should talk about them. Today we're gonna go over my top 5 best and worst things from Pokemon X and Y. Both things unique to X and Y, and things that came from X and Y but are part of the series now. How great are X and Y in retrospect? Let's find out. We'll be switching between each part one at a time, going over the worst before the best. That way we can end on a positive note. Number 5 worst, the game's incredibly easy. Yes, I know the argument. You create your own difficulty in Pokemon, which is mostly true. I replayed X and Y and had some rules to make it more difficult. I banned Megas, had level caps, and no EXP share, just to name a few, and even then the game was still relatively easy. Most trainers just don't have great movesets. The trainers not having the best movesets, getting access to Mega Evolution pretty early on, and the EXP share making it pretty easy to become overleveled, all work to make this baby's first Pokemon game, which to be fair may have been the intention. And hey, the EXP share may be pretty overpowered here, but at least you can turn it off, am I right? If I were to have made changes to the difficulty, I would have given Wolfric the Elite 4 Megas, and the gym leaders would have filled out movesets, alongside better Pokemon in some instances. Number 5 best, the 3D aesthetic. I said in my BDSP retrospective that when it comes to Switch games, BDSP is my second favorite 3D Pokemon art style, but when you add the 3DS games into this ranking, my old inbred and silly friends have to settle for the bronze medal, because Gen 6 has my second favorite art style for 3D Pokemon games. I will always be a Let's Go stan, and I will not apologize for that. And you know, we gotta give X and Y more credit. Game Freak cared enough to give every Pokemon a 3D model. They honestly look real nice. So nice in fact that Game Freak hardly updated them for nearly 10 years. I really like the way the overworld looks, and the routes have really great exploration opportunities. Like, hot take, I hate HMs as much as the next guy, but they really helped make routes feel more alive, since you could come back to a route after getting an HM, getting an item, or even explore a new part of the route. Number 4 worst, forgettable characters. Tell me, do you know these rivals' names by heart? How about these Team Flare admins? Aside from Korrina, can you name one notable thing the gym leaders did outside of their gyms? How about the Elite 4 members? If it wasn't for the anime, how well would you really remember them? Yeah, unfortunately the Kalos cast are a downgrade from the previous gen. The rivals are kinda just recurring trainers you battle, and outside of Lysander, Team Flare members are just cardboard cutouts. The gym leaders and Elite 4 members at least have neat designs, but they have as much development as the Kanto gym leaders in the Gen 1 games. Luckily, later gens learned from this and gave their characters, well, characteristics. Again, at least the anime came in and really fleshed these characters out, and gave them all the attention and the personalities that was buried. Number 4 best, a Pokemon lore master's dream. X and Y created a split in the Pokemon timeline. If The Legend of Zelda is anything to go off of, a split in the timeline is always fun. While the main story you play through may not be anything too special, the lore implications this game creates is fun to think about. At least if you're me and think way too hard about games made for children. Thousands of years before X and Y, a huge weapon was launched. Not only was this launch what created Megastones, but it was such a large event that it's what created the timeline split. The ultimate weapon being used or not decides what timeline you follow. Why was this weapon created? Because there was a war and the king's Pokepal was killed, so he created the weapon to revive his Pokemon and end the war himself. And by the way, that war could have been with several known regions. I could watch Pokemon lore videos for hours. Number 3 worst, Mega started regional gimmicks. Yeah, this is something that's been on my mind for quite a while. Honestly, I have mixed feelings about Mega Evolution in retrospect. On one hand, yeah, this is definitely the best regional gimmick. Using special stones to push your Pokemon further beyond is just awesome. A large stat boost, new design, and sometimes a new ability and/or typing. The creative possibilities are endless, but here comes my issues. For one, Megas were incredibly imbalanced. Do I mean their distribution or their competitive usage? Yes, but Mega Evolution also started the tradition of regional gimmicks. Z-moves, Dynamax, and terrestrialization, gimmicks that are immediately discarded after about 3 years. And considering how unfinished some of these games are, it makes me wonder if it would have been better if there weren't gimmicks. I mean, Pokemon did fine for 5 generations without original gimmicks, and instead just improving the battle system they already had. Heck, BDSP could have shown that Pokemon doesn't need gimmicks. But you know. Number 3 best customization options. X and Y added a feature that became an instant hit since its addition. The ability to make the player character look almost any way you want. You got brown hair and eyes like me and want your avatar to match? Hair dye and eye contacts. You tired of the default clothes? Well, not only are there various clothing stores throughout Kalos, but they'll all sell different clothes depending on what day you visit. ORAS temporarily ditched customization to be faithful, but every game since has had character customization. And despite it being 10 years now, X and Y still have the best clothing options. Most other regions try to stick to a theme, such as Alola's tropical theme and Paldea's school theme. So while that's nice in its own right, it does limit your creativity. Though if I were to play as a girl in any Pokemon game, it would be X and Y. Serena players lucked out with how many more options girls have, from way more hairstyles to infinitely better clothing options, though some of these outfits show more skin than what a teenager should. The perfect build a waifu game. Just change your clothes before you show your parents your save file. Number 2 worst, a relatively unfinished game. Unfortunately, X and Y definitely need more time in the oven, a trait that would be all too common in modern Pokemon games. You've heard it all before. Areas being teased but never made explorable, a pretty lax post-game, and the underdeveloped characters I mentioned earlier. X and Y definitely could have benefited from an enhanced version. X and Y are often compared to DP when it comes to how unfinished they are. Luckily though, unlike Diamond and Pearl, and especially unlike modern Pokemon games, X and Y are at least functional games. From what I've heard, there aren't all that many glitches in X and Y, and while things definitely could have been fleshed out more, X and Y is at least a fun, functional experience. Number 2 best, Pokemon-Amie is amazingly wholesome. Since X and Y, we've been getting amazing ways to interact with our Pokemon. Sun and Moon had Pokemon Refresh, Sword and Shield had Pokemon Camp, and Scarlet and Violet has picnics. But to me, Pokemon-Amie will always be my favorite in this genre. You can pet your Pokemon, say things to your Pokemon, feed them, and even play mini games with them. Doing these will help raise their affection, a mechanic that has mixed feelings nowadays. They tend to make games even easier than they already are, but unlike modern Pokemon games, affection is optional in X and Y. Just like the EXP share. I even went through my first playthrough not knowing affection existed. And going back to all the ways we're able to interact with our Pokemon, how many of them have created memes like Amie has? How many of them allow you to touch grass? Number 1 worst. No Pokemon Z. Yeah, remember earlier when I talked about the DP comparison? Well, the comparison is definitely warranted. I do stand by X and Y being more complete than people give them credit for, but some form of an enhanced version was definitely needed. Pretty much all the complaints I've had could have been fixed with Pokemon Z. The difficulty could have been improved, Wolfric and the Elite Four could have been given better teams and megas, and the characters could have been better fleshed out. Maybe we could have even gotten proper gym leader rematches. Zygarde could have also been treated as a proper legendary, instead of being relegated to a Sun and Moon side quest. I also wonder what direct sequels like Black 2, White 2 could have been like. Maybe the story could have been similar to what the anime did. Also, if X and Y do ever get sequels, they should absolutely be named X squared Y squared. Number 1 best, fantastic new Pokemon and team building galore. Even though Kalos only ranked 8th in my favorite Pokemon video, I still really love the new Kalos Pokemon. Many call Kalos a sort of quality over quantity region. X and Y only introduced 72 new Pokemon, though this number goes up to 100 if you count Mega Evolutions. And personally, I can barely call many of them forgettable. Kalos even had the last later gen evolution we'd get until Legends Arceus, and the original dex is huge. 457 Pokemon is by far the largest regional dex of any Pokemon game. With the Switch era, it seems 400 will become the standard regional dex. So X and Y beat Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet without DLC. The team building options are endless, and the fact that Game Freak didn't do the dex cut here, where it would have absolutely been justified if they did, will always amaze me. And there you have it, folks. The 5 best and worst things about X and Y, at least in my opinion. Revisiting X and Y 10 years later has been pretty amazing. I seriously don't even think I hit puberty yet when these games came out. And here I am as an adult making Pokemon videos on YouTube. A lot has happened in those 10 years to say the least. I said earlier that X and Y are some of my favorite Pokemon games. Honestly, they may actually rank as my 3rd favorite Pokemon game, though when you include spin-offs, they go down to 5th. How do X and Y rank for you? What are your favorite and least favorite things about X and Y? What would you do for hypothetical Pokemon Z? Let me know in the comments below. Have a nice day, you wonderful people.
Luigi, I just want to touch you all over your manly chest. Want to bury my face in your breast.